Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We're back with another In Context. Today is March 8th. Obviously, we're going to discuss the Iran war. Sorry, I'm having Iraq flashbacks. And it's definitely not limited. And it's definitely scaling up. From my amateur eye, it seems like chaos is reigning. But we need someone with an eye like yours to clarify, to zone my chaos in.
First thing I'd like to observe is the echoes of the Iraq War. For those who might be younger, they may not have lived through the ugliness of the Iraq War. A lot of the pronouncements of the US government and of other Western colonial governments ring of similar pronouncements in the Iraq War. In fact, one of the stupid vainglorious statements by the Minister of War of the US is a word for word statement by the old lunatic Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, during the Iraq War. Word for word. It is interesting that Iran, which was a major contributor to the US aggression in Iraq, is now being met the same treatment. And that's the nature of the colonial system. Today you serve the master, tomorrow the master eats you. That's what it is. Now, I'm not saying that this makes what the US is doing in Iran anything good. It's criminal. It's even if those people who were being killed were not Muslim, it would be completely horrible. People are being killed just because Trump would like to look big and great. That's the international order. The leader of the so-called free world would like to reenact the Venezuela thing once again because he'd like to get the feel, the kick of victory. And he thinks that may help him in his elections in November. So, okay, let's go decimate half the world away from us. So while the US claims that the Western Hemisphere is ours and ours alone and brings its minions to Washington to be lectured by Trump and Hegseth that we alone decide what you guys do and what you say and what goes here. It also decides that it gets to do whatever it wants in the Gulf, half the world around, the opposite side of it, and decides to do nefarious evil killing because, well, he feels like it. The first thing I'd like to just do away with is this business that Israel walked or dog walked or whatever Trump. Nobody dog walks Trump. They can entice him, they can tease him, they can tell him, well, you're going to be great and glorious and stuff, which seems to be exactly what Lindsey Graham and Netanyahu, the warmongers, did. But that is not fooling him. He is ugly. The orange gorilla is ugly, is vulgar, but he's not stupid. And it is wrong to trivialize ugliness or excuse ugliness by calling it stupidity. Ugliness and evil is ugliness and evil. It's not stupidity. Let's not excuse it. It's ugliness. This is the free world. Let's face realities. Don't make excuses because you are afraid to face them. The truth is, the leader of the free world is an evil monster who is willing to decimate the world just to feel great. He did not walk into this blind. His military did not walk into this blind, and you can see that they are ramping up and progressing in their fight smoothly. Now, you have to be careful about their pronouncements like their Minister of War pronouncements, like the Orange Gorilla pronouncements, quite frequently are free of reality. So they declare that they decimated the whole place once and twice and thrice. If you decimated yesterday, what are you doing today? If you decimated today, what are you doing tomorrow? Trump every day declares that he has decimated the Iranian Navy. Every day.
Yeah, every day.
And the count of sunk ship increases. Well, if it was yesterday, I was saying we decimated all of the Iranian Navy, all 32 pieces of them. Today he says we decimated all the Iranian Navy, all 42 pieces of them. Actually, his military claims 43, and I think the count is accurate. I'm not debating that. But, well, that tells you about how reality linked their pronouncements. Okay. Anyway, their political goals are also as quote unquote will tether to reality as this. So the point I just want to make about this is let's perceive it correctly. What's happening when they call it a war of choice? This is the fashionable name in political science literature for evil aggression. Actually, you can't identify strategic goals. The only strategic goal, as I was discussing last time, that the US would want to get out of this war is to cut Iran down in size, which was achievable without a war or without a major war. That's why I was saying, well, I don't think that's coming because rational people do not go and on adventures. Of course, it's wrong, and I'll admit that that's a mistake to assume that people are always rational. And so in political science, people will say, well, but states are not people. So as a result, you can assume rationality about them. Not true, because states also are run by people, and states are frequently run by cliques. And as a result, they can groupthink. So yeah, that's what it is.
Okay, if that's the case, and we're not predicting what we could, but still we can analyze what's the goal of the US out of this.
Yeah. So the US is claiming or making claims that it wants to replace the regime. Well, it doesn't have alternative, doesn't have anything ready or waiting in the wings. Some of the claims were, we're going to use the Iranian Kurds to attack Iran. Yes, there are a lot of charlatans ready to take American money and bomb and kill. Problem is the Iraqi Kurds don't want to be party to this because they have been given a part of the theft in Iraq and they are afraid that they will lose it. So they're saying, no, we don't want to be part of this. So it's not working. And then the US realizes now, yesterday, that, well, this is not working to say, actually, we didn't mean to say that. Well, they meant to say it, but they didn't mean to say it as an actual political move. What they meant is to scare the regime in Iran into submission. So this is scare tactic. And that's understandable. It's psychological warfare. Nothing new in there. So this business of replacing the regime isn't happening. The business of, well, we're going to reduce the nuclear, missile, whatever it is, Navy, this is more like it. This is actually military speak, but that doesn't have a strategic depth. This is when you let the military types run politics, this is how it looks like. So when they say that, that tracks, because actually this is what they are doing. And it looks like, well, Trump is saying, well, instead of trying to achieve our goal of cutting Iran to size through political means or mild military pressure, we're going to actually do it practically with our own hands. The problem with this is, or the risks of that is, when you launch a major war, things do not up to plan. Things go sideways. There's blowback. That's why imperial orders try to achieve their goals through military pressure and diplomatic pressure rather than open war, because that way you can progressively march the slaves or the to-be slaves or the weaker states where you want them to be, rather than go into a conflagration where you are not as sure about the result. So this is using an inferior tool in the colonial statecraft. But that seems to be obviously the target of this. The side effects of that is it's exposing a very ugly scene in the Middle East. Every single nation state, Arab-speaking nation state, is right now a U.S. colony. Every single a U.S. colony, not in the post-World War sense, but in the post-World War II, but in the post-World War I colonial sense. Bases, the place is run by the US with an Arab face in front of it. That's it. The BBC literally says that, well, the Arab Gulf states support the Israeli US aggression on Iran, while they say, well, we are not part of it, we have nothing to do with it, and stuff like that. And actually, the US is not attacking from our lands. That is nonsense. That is complete nonsense. The US military in Turkey is not participating in the attack. Yes. So the US has a base in Turkey. Turkey is part of NATO, and other NATO forces are actually exist in Turkey. However, all of these forces are not part of the attack, neither airspace nor these forces. However, in the Arab colonies, these are part of an integrated US military command that runs them all. Don't believe it when they tell you that, well, the US is going to listen to Bahrain, for example, when it tells it, well, don't attack this side, but attack that side. Attack only to defend us, but don't attack to harm Iran. What is this nonsense? Okay. This fiction was started by Keir Starmer, who is a cheap lawyer, and it's a lawyerly thing. He's saying, well, we are going to authorize the US to attack Iran, but only to attack defensively, to attack those places that are used to attack the Gulf states. A, the US is not about to take these orders from him. B, there is no such thing in war. That's not a military term. This is legalese. And that legalese is meant actually for the Western colonial powers that are not US to be able to help the US in its war without getting the blame for it. So they are irritated and alarmed that the US is undermining the international order, to the point that even the English, who are always kissing US feet, had to state it explicitly. Even the Germans, who are usually very courteous to the US, said it explicitly. They're saying we're supporting the US, but on the other hand, we don't agree with the attack itself. But we're supporting the US defense. So this is actually, they are trying to finesse a political issue. The US is undermining the international order, all of the order. And actually today, the Kremlin spokesman said, well, what principles and norms of international order you talk about? They don't exist anymore. And that's actually. So they are trying to finance this political quandary. They want to help their colonial cousins in a tough spot, because actually the US right now is in another tough spot. While on the other hand, they want also to protect their vested interests in the international order. But that is not a thing of, well, we're attacking the defensive. The US doesn't take orders. Stop this nonsense. And the US military force in the Middle East is integrated. It works as one unit. So you can't tell me that, well, we have told this unit, this piece in Qatar or in Bahrain not to do stuff. You don't get to tell your colonial master. Stop lying to yourself or lying to others if that's the case.
What about the Israeli ground force in Lebanon? Is this a part of would you tie this into the whole plan of the US?
Well,
to stabilize any resistance?
This is Israel is trying to claim the subcontractor status in the Middle East. It's trying to claim the right for arbitrary action in the Middle East. The US keeps saying we have the right to a veto on your actions, but Israel is trying to say or establish facts on the ground that we get to do what we want to do, when we want to do it. We don't need to check, okay? And that's what they're doing in Lebanon. When the US says, well, it's the Israelis who attack the Iranian oil storage facilities, but we are not attacking any oil storage facilities. This is garbage. In this war, there is only one commander, and it's American. And again, the US doesn't allow others to run its wars. But the US is not attacking Lebanon. It's Israel that's attacking Lebanon. That's a different game. Okay. And this is how militaries work. No two militaries can be in a battlefield with no one in charge, or both of them in charge at once. This is nonsense.
So why do you think that for the first time you see news outlets labeling this?
So just a minute. The US claims that it's Israel that attacked this target or that target. Is complete rubbish. This is not credible and is not worth considering. However, what's happening in Lebanon is a separate issue. Yes, go ahead.
So why do you think at this time, like you see the label that even CNN, all these outlets saying it's a US-Israeli launch? Like usually it says US by itself, but now they combine it together.
They are describing facts because it's US-Israeli. Yes, that's a fact. But I mean, when the boss and his employee, are doing something, the boss was in charge. The strategic oversight, the military systems of the US are on top of those of Israel, not the other way around. This is a bureaucratic issue, not even political. Okay? You can't fly a kite in the Gulf without US permission, not launch attacks. This is nonsense. Window dressing. Just like, for example, when Iran says, we're not attacking the Gulf states, we're attacking US bases. They're attacking more than bases. But this is window dressing. Okay?
Well, that begs the question, what's Israel's goals then?
Israel would like to destroy the state in Iran, meaning they would love to bring down the regime. That is not in the cards. It's not doable. And if not possible, then they cause maximum damage and to cause a serious conflagration. Israeli media is on an hourly basis issuing lies to create an even nastier conflagration. The latest, for example, they claimed falsely that the UAE attacked the Iranian desalination plant on Qashm Island. It was the US. Iran even accused the US through UAE bases. Okay. So if every day there is at least one or two lies, big lies out of earlier also they said that Qatar attacked Iran and Qatar came out and said we didn't. Okay. They claimed also stuff from the Kurdish north of Iraq and the Kurdish presidency of the regional administration in Iraq also came out denying the claims outright against denying the actual Israeli claim. So Israel is trying to create as big a conflagration as possible and to cause as much damage all around as possible. But in the process, I think what people need to reflect on is how nasty is this colonial regime. The US is not, with its minions in Israel, is not just decimating Iran, it's decimating the Gulf. When the US attacks the desalination plant on Qashm Island, they are opening all the desalination plants on the western side of the Gulf to attack. All of the Gulf depends on desalination. And all of these desalination plants are joint, it's called combined process plants. They produce both water and electricity. And they are on the Gulf because they need to take water from the Gulf and eject the refuse to the Gulf. They are open and easy targets. So when the US goes and attacks the natural result is they attacked the desalination plant yesterday at night. Today, Iran attacked the desalination plant in Bahrain. What is that? These are the people who opened the land to the US to colonize it. Actually, the UAE built the base in Emirates and invited the US to occupy it, thinking that they are claiming to the people that are being plighted by these governments that this way we're going to secure you and keep you safe. And actually what's doing is it's bringing destruction. If desalination plants are hit, there will be no water, no electricity. Life itself will cease. If you attack the desalination plants in Iran, nothing happens. Qashm is an island in the middle of the Gulf. That's why it has a desalination plant. But Iran has natural resources, water resources. They have issues with them, but just like the rest of the world, nothing news. But the western side is dependent. Life itself depends on desalination plants. So the US goes and attack it. It's irresponsible. It's unthinkable. And they do it naturally. And all of these minions cannot say anything about it. They have not said anything about it. They're blaming Iran for attacking the desalination plant. Well, the US started. What is even worse is if you look carefully at the war, these bases and the arms in them were never meant to protect the Gulf. They are meant to protect Israel. That's why when Iran switched plans this time around and started to fight seriously, not make believe like last time, they're hitting US bases. Because even the US bases, let alone civilian population or government installation, the US bases are not protected because the arms are there to protect Israel. If you look carefully at the damage pattern, the Iranian attacks on US bases in Bahrain and Kuwait are quite effective compared to the attacks in Qatar and the UAE. And that is a reflection of the fact that Kuwait and Bahrain do not have their own defense systems. Qatar and UAE, because they went into a war with each other a couple of years ago, have their own systems. But the US system, it's meant to protect Israel. So all of this is doing is protecting Israel and harming the local population that is being fooled that treason and betrayal is the way to safety. These governments are not just corrupt, deeply corrupt, thieving, base. They are extremely stupid. That's the deal you're making? Destroying your own resources so that the US can go and destroy Iran and protect Israel. And you get destroyed in the middle. And this stupid claim that, well, how dare Iran attack us? We are brothers and neighbors. Get a life. What are you talking about? What are the US bases doing in the Gulf? They're not sightseeing. Come on. This is not even worth discussion. And don't tell me once again that, well, you are going to tell the US whom to attack and whom not to attack. You give a base to the US does what it wants to do with it. You don't get to say. Even the status of force agreements you sign with the US says you have nothing to do with US personnel on your land. If they kill someone, you can't do anything about it in the street. Get a life. That's where we are. So we'd better face the facts. We are under a nasty colonial regime that considers us just like cockroaches. And cockroaches don't need water. And it's not just the doing of the US, it's the doing of those venal individuals in charge.
Where's the future then?
What's the future? First, we call it in context because future is a dangerous place to to predict. Second, try to do the least we can do. So I don't see the US defeating Iran, but I don't see Iran defeating the US either. One of two things probably is going to happen. Either Iran gets lucky and sinks a big American frigate or an aircraft carrier, and then the wind blows in a different direction, and the orange cloud declares victory, or it goes for several weeks without much to show for it, and the orange cloud decides that he has had enough and declares victory. If anybody has been watching, the orange clown made a stupid mistake 2 days ago when he came and said, Iran will have to surrender unconditionally for the war to stop, which is the same thing he said last time. And then he spent all of yesterday walking it back. So first he put out the liar in the name of the White House to say, well, actually, surrender means whatever Trump decides to me, it means. Then Trump came out a second time yesterday afternoon to say exactly the same thing. Then he came out last night to say the same thing. So obviously he has figured out, he has painted himself into a corner. That is a characteristic of the orange clown. Whenever he feels that he is not getting what he wants, he asks for 100 times what he wants. And the stupid calculation is if you ask for the moon, then you're going to get half of it, because the others would be so scared they are going to give in something rather than suffer the scary prospect of you getting the moon. That's just like his Rivera and Gaza thing. It works sometimes. It worked in Gaza, I have to admit. So, he's a very good con artist. You have to give him that. But in this particular case, at least, he is figuring out that, this is a dangerous place to be, because unconditional surrender is not going to happen. So you have to redefine what unconditional surrender to mean. It means. And he is defining it to mean whatever he feels like calling it. So I think this ends when the orange clown decides he has had enough, either because it starts damaging him really, or because he gets bored and decides to go fish somewhere else. It's a beautiful world we're living in.
Yeah, I think they're gonna continue with the military air campaign because, like you said earlier, it's progressing smoothly. Unfortunately, they're getting closer and closer, and that allows them to strike faster and faster. So if Iran can get lucky, as you put it, that would help. I see your point. But do you think, as they say, boots on the ground is a feasible option?
The US may launch limited strikes because that also would give the vainglorious clown brownie points. But that is neither here nor there. Meaning, they could launch a raid and kill someone, or launch a raid and steal something. That's possible. I'm not enamored with the military analysis and spending time on ships and tanks. It doesn't have political meaning really. So that may be done and may give him something. The risk is it may also go badly and gives him a black eye. So it's a possibility, but I'm not sure it's highly likely. But it won't make a difference to the general scheme of things. Major invasion is not happening. Neither the US is planning for it, nor does it look feasible. So I don't think that's a thing. And even the propaganda about the regime collapse seems to have cooled down in the last 2 days. After getting hyped a lot by Western media in the first few days, it's cooling down. So we're looking for something between a week to a few weeks of more ugliness and more death of innocence.
Yeah, I think we got it.
Okay, thank you.